Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to add a third button into this toolbar up here, this header bar, which will allow us to toggle the darkness, whether it's on or off. And in order to do that, I'm first of all going to have to get rid of these rather garish colors. So let's start with just removing the coloring around the app and its two pages. The home page, let's get rid of this red. And the profile page, get rid of this green. Okay, so if I save those, we should see that we're now either black or white, depending on whether the darkness is switched true or false. So at the moment it's true, if we're black. If I go on to false, we should see it now toggles to white, which it does. So that's all working. The main point of this lesson is to set up this button so we can toggle it. And to do that, we're going to use some context, which is going to both store the state and provide a setter function to change it. So for the time being, I can lose that. I'll stop it running and reclaim the terminal space. And I will start by opening the counter context. In fact, that's all we're going to look at for the moment. So I'll close others. And I'm going to create a new context, new file, which I'm going to call theme context. And it's essentially going to replicate the counter context, but we're going to work with a Boolean rather than a number. So I'll sort of copy it down line by line, making the appropriate changes as we go. So I can take this little banner, so I'll copy the comment down. And then the first challenge is this interface. So it's going to be called theme context value rather than counter context value. And the first item is going to be dark, which is going to be a Boolean. And the second item is going to be a setter function to set dark. So let me show you something really helpful here. If I just put a line of code in here, if I say const dark, comma, set dark equals the React function call useState, and I pass it a Boolean, it knows that we're dealing with Booleans here. And if I hover the mouse over dark, you see it says dark is Boolean. And you see this set dark here, it's got the type for that. And this is what React expects the type of a Boolean setter to be. So I can literally I'm going to hit Control C on that. And then I can borrow that and put set dark is of type, all of that stuff. And at the moment I just need to import it, so I can say add all missing imports. It's added them up here. So I frequently find myself doing that. If I don't know the type in React, I just sort of declare a variable, set it to the type, and then I can cut and paste it and use the type elsewhere. Okay, so that's our interface set up, and now we're going to create the actual context, just like the counter context. So that's pretty much a facsimile copy, except it's called theme context and uses the theme context value instead. Notice we're not exporting it. Nothing's going to know about this context because we're going to provide a helper function. So let's write that. And our helper function is going to be called useTheme. And we'll go through the same process. The first thing we'll do is we'll call the React function call useContext and pass it theme context, which, if you remember, this will either return a type of theme context value if it succeeds, but it may fail, in which case it'll return a null. So we do this little type guard jig here, and then we can return the value in the sure knowledge that it's not null. So we can see value here is theme context value. Finally, we need to provide a provider. So the interface, remember we have to specify the type of the children, and they're always React Node. So then we actually write our provider itself. And in this case, rather than doing counter and set counter for our data, this time our data is going to be dark and set dark. and we'll share that by putting it all together in a single object. So shared data has got both of the variable dark, and it's also got a setter function. And then we simply return that in our context provider like this. And so the last thing we need to do is we need to actually export it, and then that can be used in our app. So hopefully that's a bit of a memory jogger from the context lesson. So now I can actually delete the counter context. Not going to use that anymore. And in app, I will simply replace counter with theme. And you see there's 4 instances, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. So we've now flipped that over. And if you remember this helper function over here, useTheme, we can now use that in our app to find out what the state of dark is. So I can say const dark equals useTheme. That wasn't very good, was it? useTheme, like this, and I'll import that. And I'll take the value of dark. Notice that dark is typed as a Boolean, and I can replace this here. So that'll read it and set dark the correct way. We now need to actually set the value. So for that, I'm going to go to our header, and I'm going to add a third button in here, like this. And the text on it will read dark. I'll set that up in a minute. And if it's dark is set to true, it's currently dark, then we'll say turn light. And if it's currently light, we'll say turn dark. I'll replace these with icons shortly. But for the time being, I need to say const dark equals useTheme, just like we did before. And I need to import that. Now we're actually going to set darkness as well, so I need to import set dark as well. And the other is just saying you're not using it. So in my button, I'm going to put an on click equals the react expression, which is going to be an arrow function. And the arrow function is going to call set dark, and it's going to supply the opposite value to what dark currently is. So let's run that. I'll bring up the terminal again, npm run dev. And here's the new button. And we can see it's doing the toggling. So we've got it working. This is a little untidy, so I'm now going to just reformat the header. So let's just get rid of the terminal again. And the first thing I'm going to do is replace these strings with a pair of icons. Now it so happens that when we installed S10, it gave us an icon library, and I can use these. And the next thing I want to do is just tidy up the alignment in the header itself. Things are a little bit wonky, so I'm going to remove these sizes here. And I'm going to change these margins to M1s. And finally, I'm going to put sizing on the button as well and change it to a ghost button, just like the others. So now, if I bring up the application again, hopefully it'll all look a little bit nicer. We can see that the buttons are essentially the same size. Okay, well that's all working, so I'll leave it there, and I will see you in the next lesson.